Hello everyone, how are you? Thank you for clicking on my channel. I'm Dummy. I hope you're well, genuinely. So today's video is going to be fun. I'm going to be talking about a second chance romance that I highly fucking recommend. And what we're going to do is for the first half of this video, like the very brief first half, I'm going to give you a brief, good synopsis on what this book is about and what you're getting into when you're reading this book. And for the second half, I'm going to be taking you through my notes. So what I mean about through my notes is when I'm reading a book that I thoroughly enjoy, I tend to take down notes, context clues, references that I want to revisit when I finish the book, because I realize that when I enjoy a book, when I really, really enjoy a book, I just really go through the experience. I don't get to, savor everything. So I write down notes to just really relive some certain situations as I felt when I was reading the book. I don't know if that sentence made any sense, but you get the gist, right? So that's what we're going to be doing today, and it's going to be fun. Now, the book is Before I Let Go by Candy Ryan. If you've read this book, how are we doing? I hope I will. And if you haven't read this book, hey, buy it right now. Like, yeah, it's not even intimidating, but don't let it intimidate you. It's so fucking good. So when I finished this book, right, I said on TikTok that this was the best book I had read in the year, and it was only March. It's April now, and I stand by that. However, the book I read shortly after almost debunked it, but I changed my statement by saying this is the best down-to-earth book that I have read this year. And the book I read, I thought was like the best fantasy sci-fi book, even though that's not really my genre, but you get the gist. And this is the book, this is the one more chapter kind of book. This is the, okay, let me just get through this scenario kind of book. This is the, let me just see what's going on before I drop this book kind of book. This is the, you're at the doctor's appointments, and you're, in one chapter, and you finish the chapter and say, okay, but I need to see what happens next. This is the kind of book that's leaves you at a hook at the end of every chapter. Maybe only the first two chapters is just like setting the ground rules, setting, just building everything, let you know who is who. And from the third chapter, it's like, okay, boom, you just want to go. And the thing is, why I started taking notes was that, like, I realized that when I finished this book, I hated myself so much for not, like, taking it slow, but it's not possible because it's that fucking good. And it has one of my favorite elements where you get to read from two different perspectives. So this book follows Yasmin and Josiah. They are a divorced couple, co-parenting, and they co-own a restaurant in downtown Atlanta. And this book starts with, meeting Yasmin as a character, seeing what she's, what she has processed, what she's going through, who she is as a person while she's dropping off her kids at the restaurant because she's going to see her friends. And then the second chapter picks up from the dad, how he feels when he sees his ex-wife walking into the restaurant with her kids or with their kids, and what he's thinking through. So they went through their divorce because they experienced a certain loss as a family. And I really, really respect and enjoy the fact that the book picks up from seeing how they've already processed it. Like, they've gone through it, they've processed it, and they're just who they are now. But then that sets a better precedent for when you're in the middle and you kind of see who they were during that, certain process of loss and the certain moments of grief and everything. It's very good, and it only makes sense when you read the book. So that's how you meet these characters. And for the first two chapters, you're meeting them, you're meeting the kids, you're meeting their friends, and you're kind of seeing what's going on. Now, the book's just, goes to the middle for when when you break up with someone and then you're thinking of they're still in your life. So in this case, they're co-parenting, they have certain connections like friends and business partners together, but they want to try dating again, and they have to date in the same vicinity. And it's a bit, shall I say, it's more touchy, and you have to be very careful when you're dating with kids in the situation, because you don't want to bring someone into the kids' lives that's not the right fit or that's dangerous or harmful to the kids. So you're seeing from both their perspectives how careful they are of each other and how careful they are of who they are deciding to date, bring around the kids, bring around the house, and bring around their friends and the business. You're seeing what's going on through that process. Now, you get through the dating, and then you get to see them making certain business choices and business decisions together, and how they still respect one another, and how they tend to work well together even though they're not together. Now, I will say, feelings tend to come back when they make, certain decisions, when they're in certain vicinities, but that's just, building to who they are as people. Now, you get through that, they make a certain business decision, and they have to go on a trip. And because they're in a very, very close vicinity away from everyone else, they have to have a much needed conversation on what they went through and how their marriage ended and how their family kind of almost disbanded. And you get to see what they were then thinking when the separation, the grief, and the whole loss happened, and who they were as people before they then moved on to who they are now when you meet them in the beginning of the book. And then after that process, you then get to the I guess let's just say the ending of the book, where they then made some certain decisions. They then concluded who they want to be as a family, who they are as people, and you as a reader have to be comfortable with that and just go through the process and go through the journey with them, and it's fucking sensational. That's what this book is about. It's about love ignited. It's about love coming back. And let me just say something. You know how, I guess only maybe a handful of people can relate to this, but when you're separated from someone, when you've kind of, moved on from someone not being in your life, and then they come back for a certain reason, and you get to see their value in a different light. And because you're different as a person, it's like, oh wow, hold on. But then you're a bit scared because it's like, okay, but we weren't together anymore for a reason. Why should we now? But then you see your life situations, you see who you are as people, and it's like, okay, well, we went through what we went through, we are who we are now. Let's pick this up from a different point of view. Let's pick this up from a different dock and kind of go through this journey again together as different people. That's the kind of book that this is, and it's just riveting. It's just delicious. I read this book, I finished the book on my couch, and I was like, I closed this book and I'm like, wow, this author, Kennedy Ryan, she's okay. I literally bought her next book. Well, not her next book, but I bought another of her books because she writes in a way that's just so bingeable. Like, you just want to read everything she writes. She makes you so interested in the characters. She makes you so interested in the situation. She makes you understand what's going on. And there's something as well where, so, pertaining to loss, right? She handles it so carefully. So you know how you read some books, you start some books, right? And it's just thrown to you what happens. Like, okay, let's just say, for example, the main character falls from, I don't know, maybe the main character falls down the stairs as a child or something. And the first paragraph is like, I didn't know how my life would have been if I didn't fall down. No, wait, no. Let's run that back. The first chapter just introduces you like, oh, what my life could have been if I didn't fall down the stairs and lose my legs. If I didn't break my spine or something, right? Just imagine that kind of author. But Kennedy Ryan gives you almost like she's breadcrumbing you, where she's basically spoon-feeding you what has happened. She's not throwing everything, to you at once. She's not like catching you off guard. So that when you do get to the point where, okay, it's like we as the readers and the characters in the book have to have this conversation. It's like, okay, we know what has happened. We were expecting this now. Let's take a breath and let's just take this in. And it was so good. What happens in the book in particular, which I don't want to spoil for you because it's an experience, is as a man, I honestly can't relate to it, but then seeing how much care, information, and research went into what this character went through psychologically, physically, emotionally, it's just, dare I say, you almost can relate, but unless you've gone through this certain experience, you just can't relate. But it's like, wow. Like, you read this book, when you read something, it's like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like, I totally understand the experience. That's the kind of confidence the author gives you when you get to then see the process, and she gives you everything that's going on. It's a fucking sensational. But that's the book. That's it, right? Now, let's get through my notes. If that was satisfactory enough for you, and you're going to pick up the book now, turn off the video. I've done my job. It's done. But I'm going to go through my notes because just for my value and for anyone else who's here as well, to kind of see what I was thinking through this book, right? Number one, the side characters in this book are fucking sensational. Like, one of my earlier videos on my channel, I was talking about 7 Days in June, and there's a daughter in the book that just, like, literally, till today, I would love a book on what the daughter is doing with her life. And that is the exact same scenario for this book. So she has 2 kids, Yasmin, and her daughter is, I guess, in high school, middle school. And, teenagers are just, like, very experimental and very... they're not one-dimensional. And as a character, she's so interesting. She's like an influencer. She's, like a hair influencer. She talks about hair, does video on hair, products and everything. And I just really want to know what she's going through. Like, I would love a book just saying what she does when she gets to college. She's so good. And like, when these 2 main characters, Yasmin and Josiah, I can't really call them the main characters anymore. But when they're not in the room, and it's maybe one of the kids, or the kids and someone else, or the kids and like one of the parents, it just still carries the same weights as when is the two characters, because even the kids as well, don't forget, they went through the same loss and the same experience almost as the parents. So you get to then see their point of view, their side, and what they went through and how they process or how they are processing what happened. So the side characters in this book, almost all of them are fucking sensational. The friends in this book, that's another one. They are so these two characters both have friends, and you get to see how these friends have helped them through what's happened. But then it's different because Yasmin met her friends after her certain loss, and she's kind of built a relationship off of who she wanted to become and who she is becoming, and it's just delicious because she has two friends. One's like a mother of two. She's a stay-at-home mom. You can see her point of view, her side of things, and how talented she is, but how she's deciding to stay home to build her kids before she decides to like maybe move on with life and like go through a different venture. And you get to see the other one who is not married, has no kids, is not in a relationship, but she's like I think a director of some sort, and she's into reality TV, so she manages like the Housewives or something. And you get to see how she's almost like comedic relief in a way, really. And she's she's so intentional when she's in certain scenes. You get to see how even though she's joking and being comedic, and sometimes there's truth and there's like emotion and there's power and there's, what's the word I'm looking for? There's intentionality, that's a fucking word, to what she's saying sometimes. She can joke about something, but you get the message. That's the kind of character that her friends are. Josiah as well has some friends that I will say aren't as, what's the word? They aren't as deep. You don't really get to relate to Josiah's friends as much as Yasmin's friends. And I don't want to say maybe because the author didn't want to dive into men. I'm not going to say that, but you still get to see how Josiah is connected to his friends and how, you know, the kind of relationship with his friends started and how it has bloomed as well. It's really good. One of the heavy themes, tones, and represents this book is therapy, and therapy for Black people in particular. And we all know how as a community, some Black people are a bit dismissive and scrutinizing and criticizing of therapy, because that's not how some people tend to, you know, go through their emotions. Now, Josiah as a character, as a Black father and as an older man in this book, is someone who doesn't necessarily see the necessity of therapy, but it gets to see how, so he has to go through therapy for a certain reason and for someone else's benefits in the book, you know, in the starts. And he starts therapy, and the first two, you know, sessions with his therapist, he's like, man, fuck this guy, I don't really see the point behind all of this. But then you get to see how he then realizes that he does need an outlet and he needs to just talk about something. And once he starts, the floodgates open, he goes to therapy, and it's just amazing. And there's an amazing reference towards the end of the book, how seeing therapy has then helped him as a character, as a person, and how it has evolved his thinking in a way. And it's something I would love to see in real life, you know, so just happening a lot more, because I know some people would do need therapy, but you know, that's beside the point. Anyway, moving on. Dialogue. The dialogue in this book is it's good, and I'm going to link that with references, because what they do is, say they're having a conversation. So there's a certain scene, I'm going to paint the scene for you. Josiah and Yasmin are in their house. It's before Thanksgiving. They're talking about something, talking about how they're going to handle Thanksgiving with both their families and maybe some potential partners, and they're talking about it. Then he sees their counter, the table counter in the house, and he references thinking about how when they were together they would have sex on that counter. And they're talking, he's thinking of, you know, he's reminiscing on something, they're having a conversation, and then towards like the middle, the ending of the book, they then have sex on this counter, and you don't see it in the moment, but then you remember like, oh my god, he thought about it, he talked about it, and it's like, oh, fucking A. It's really good. The dialogue is so good, and when I do become a writer eventually, this is the kind of dialogue I want to be able to write, because it's just, it pulls you in, you're not bored, you're like, it almost feels like you're eavesdropping, because it's in the middle of this book when they are revisiting something that happens, you know, before their marriage kind of dissolved, and they're having a conversation. It almost feels like you're a child and you're hearing what you're not supposed to hear. Like you would imagine you're their kids, and it's like, okay, wait, am I supposed to hear mom and dad talking about this? That's how it feels, and it's so good. And that's the kind of conversation and dialogue I want to read when I'm reading a book. I believe one of my last notes I'm going to share is how well this book shows you how people tend to deal with grief and how grief can or should be handled, because I've talked about this in most books that I've read, like All My Rage by Sabata Her, which is on the channel. I've read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jenna McCurdy. And these books and this book as well shows different ranges and different ways different ranges and ways in which people deal with grief. And this book as well shows another way where for one person they can be very dismissive, and it's like, okay, I went through this, but I had to move on with life. I had to get through something. I have to keep my family afloat. I have to support the business. I have to go to work. I have to kind of get things moving. I've lost someone, but that's fine. Life has to keep moving on. And then you see another character's perspective where it's like, well, I kind of want to sit in this. I have to sit in this. Like, do I have to sit in this? You get to see that process. And then the ending of this book, when these characters have kind of almost evolved a lot more than when you meet them, it's almost like it switches. Because then one character is like, well, I was supposed to move my life, but then I just, for some reason, couldn't get up. I had to kind of sit in this. And then for another character, he's like, well, I wanted to sit in this, but I don't know what would have happened to me if I did sit in it. So I had to just keep moving like nothing happened. And it just shows how grief impacts people's lives and how people tend to process things or not process things. And it's really sensational. If I say any more, I'm going to say the whole book, and I don't want to, even though I'm tempted. So, all that being said, I really hope, and I know I have, because I've given so much gems and so much bullet points, but Pick Up Before I Let Go by Candy Ryan. It's an amazing read, and I cannot wait to read everything else that this woman writes, because she's fucking sensational. She's so sweet, and I only know she's sweet because I tagged down like TikTok and she replied or something, but she's amazing. And you just know when someone puts their fucking mind, heart, and just soul into a book, and this is one of those. So, all that being said, thank you for watching this video. If I was able to tell you on this book, I do that for a lot of books I read that I really do enjoy, that I thoroughly enjoy. And if I don't enjoy a book, I would let you know. But please subscribe, comment if you read this book, and come back and comment as well when you do decide to read this book, because I really hope you do. It's just add it to your list. You won't regret it, I promise you. It's so good. So thank you so much for watching my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've been Dami, and I would hope to see you next time when I'm talking about another book or book that I've enjoyed. See you next time. Bye-bye.